Boom, 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 boom.
Boom, 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 boom.
Avast! Guard the cannons!
Ho, ho, ho.
Did you
Welcome,
just
all
ho,
ye
ho, ho?
scurvy listeners.
Is
to
that
the
Santa Pirate?
Latest episode of the Tough Cut Podcast. We've taken over this one over here.
He's here to slay.
All I can think of is Santa Pirate now, and why haven't they done a holiday pirate?
Well, they very well
I'm
may
about to
have
Google holiday
later
pirate.
this episode.
Holiday pirate.
Just kidding. It's actually just the regular cast of the Tough Cut. Pirates have not yet mutinied over this podcast.
Yeah, that'd be crazy if we were planning a mutiny. I mean, if the pirates were planning a mutiny.
Aren't we all three equals? Who's getting mutinied here?
Yeah, that'd be crazy if we said we're all three equals, but one of us feels like he's less than the other three, and so he wants to overthrow the tyranny of, the system and make a new system. That'd be crazy. I'm just saying that'd be wild.
Yeah, honestly, not convinced.
So
Yeah.
there's a German movie named Pirate Vacation, but I don't know what it is or what it's about.
Honestly, chances are Santa gets killed by pirates in that movie.
Hey, that
Possible.
sounds pretty cool. Also, I tuned out while you guys were talking about.
Don't even worry about it.
It was really important,
who's on
and
top.
it will come back.
No mutinies here.
No mutinies? Oh, that's good.
Anyway, with that, hello and welcome back. We're the Tough Cut Podcast. This is episode 64, Pirate Bracket Part 2, and I'm Matthew.
I'm Alex.
Jakey.
Yeah, and coming at you in today's episode, we've got Treasure Planet versus Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, and Muppet Treasure Island versus Hook. Which should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
However,
It should be a lot of fun.
However, we'll save it for the end.
What?
What's this about? What are we doing here?
Nothing.
Matt,
What else do we say?
You can't not talk for like 30 seconds and then just say, I'll save it for the end. What?
What else do we say before we jump into the episode, boys?
Look, all I'm saying is we're going to be spoiling these movies. We're a little spoil. You live life on the high seas. Like, we're recording this from a boat in the Caribbean.
We haven't decided.
Carabiners. We're recording this from our carabiners while we're mountain climbing.
Jake, are you going to make that joke every time we talk about one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
Yeah, every time.
Cool.
It's mostly like, it just helps me break down how to say that word and not feel like silly about it, because there's going to be one diehard fan that's like, it's Caribbean or it's Caribbean, and I'm going to be like, it's Carabiners. I could say it's Care Bear. Would that be better?
Ooh, I think you need to come up with a new word.
Okay,
every week. So this week's was Care Bear.
This week is Care Bear. Well, okay, so we're off on the Care Bear seas, and we don't have a fridge on the Care Bear seas, so things get spoiled, and that's what we'll do on the podcast. We're going to be spoiling these movies. Yeah, no, I had something. I was going somewhere.
Are you about to ask people for money because we're dying at sea? Like, I'm very confused.
I would never ask them for money. No, actually, I think I have already on the podcast.
I think several times, actually.
3 or 4 times.
Okay. Well, that's on our audience for not giving me money when I ask.
That's on our editor for not cutting out you asking for money.
That editor's probably just horrifically underpaid like every host here.
Right. We'll be spoiling these movies, maybe some other movies. This is a spoiler podcast. We're not afraid to spoil movies, so keep an eye out for that.
It's been a really productive 5-minute intro here. So I'm going to take that and jump right in with introducing Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Released in 2003, directed by Gore Verbinski.
Woo!
Yeah, Yar har, I be a pirate and I'm coming in to hijack your introduction. I'm introducing Treasure Planet in the middle of your introduction of Pirates of the Caribbean because I'm a pirate. I'm hijacking it. Treasure Planet, released in 2002, directed by John Musker and Ron Clements. I didn't prep this.
A pirate never preps.
So I'm going to read off Google again. A legendary loot of 1,000 worlds inspires an intergalactic treasure hunt when 15-year-old Jim Hawkins stumbles upon a map to the greatest pirate trove in the universe in Walt Disney Pictures' thrilling animated space adventure, Treasure Planet. Based off of one of the greatest adventure stories ever told, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. This film follows Jim's fantastic journey across a parallel universe as cabin boy aboard a glittering space galleon. It's Treasure Island, but in space.
There we go. Yeah, we got there. Yeah, in space.
Yeah, it's good.
Very literally.
It's very good.
That was, in fact, the pitch.
Yep. Sorry for hijacking you, Matt, but tis the season of pirates, you know?
That's the most polite piracy I've ever seen.
Yeah, I endorse polite pirates.
Well, I guess we are on the same crew, so I didn't want to, totally...
Yeah, no, there's no planned mutiny.
No mutiny.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Wink.
Wink. Wink. So there's another movie. Oh, no, we should talk about how we feel about it.
Yeah,
sure.
How'd we like?
I picked this movie
pick
because going into this bracket, it was my favorite rendition of Treasure Island.
Going into it, though.
Yeah, because I don't want to reveal where I'm at with Treasure Island yet, because it would either make or break Jake's little heart.
Yeah, it very it would.
I think this is such a good movie that, for whatever reason, totally bombed on the box office and just disappeared, and Disney tried to smother it and shovel it down.
It did bomb, which is wild,
and I have
to me
no
as
idea why, because it is.
Well,
I mean, I guess it's
it was a fantastically expensive movie, and Disney did not advertise it well at all. They had to use some new 3D rendering tech for a ton of this film.
Oh, so they didn't go the James Cameron route where they're like, this is the most technologically advanced film ever. Go fucking see it, because it's animation and no one gave a shit.
So Disney was like, instead, we could just make 3D animated films that are way cheaper and way more profitable. So
that's why Princess and the Frog didn't make as much money, because it was on the cusp of it was the last one to use that animation style.
Which is not for 10 years after this.
Yeah.
They this movie killed 2D animation at Disney Studios, basically.
Yeah. Wild. Absolutely.
Well, but what's crazy about it is they didn't market it at all, and so it bombed. And it's just such a shame, because it really is, I think, an amazing movie. Beautifully
It was only
done.
for something that bombed. It only was negative. I know this sounds like still a lot of money, but it was only negative 30 million. It almost made its budget. At least it almost broke zero. From 110 million to 140 million was the difference. So
yeah.
I mean, it lost money though. I feel that is.
Yeah, no matter
losing
what,
any money
Disney's
is
going to look
bad.
at it, and it's Disney, so it's if you don't at least
punishable offense by the mouse himself.
Walk the plank, as it were. How do you like it, Matthew?
So if the fact that I have keen interest in its production history doesn't reveal anything, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I super wanted to pick this, but Alex beat me to the punch, so I ended up selecting some other movies instead. Much like Alex, it was going into this bracket, I think my favorite rendition of the Treasure Island story.
Going into the bracket.
Yeah. Which I think is such an additionally funny wrinkle that this is Disney's third take on the Treasure Island formula. Because they made
also
one
pitched
in the
it
50s.
3 times. That's crazy. They tried to pitch this and no one wanted to pick it up. This is an idea that was dead in the water for a long time. It was in production hell. It
was to my knowledge, it turned into a 1 for, or 3 for you, 1 for me situation for the 2 directors.
Yeah.
It's just such a fantastic version of this story. I love the setting. I think the world building is really, really cool. I think it's visually stunning.
Right.
There's a lot to like here, and man, are these alternate universe space pirates rad.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably, just to jump into my opinion on it, having space pirates, rad. And I'm a sucker for the story of Treasure Island, but I'm a sucker for turning it on its head, as we'll see, when we go forward in the bracket. But I love space pirates. I thought this was so fun. I love a good sci-fi. And I think as a kid, and I watched this where I was this was a really cool age of Disney for me. I thought they took a lot of chances that people like now, but people didn't appreciate then. Atlantis was in this time frame, and that's a great fucking movie as well. But they took chances on really, really cool things, and I think Treasure Planet is indicative of that. And I think it's super fun. It has a good time. You know, post 9/11 movie, 2002. Wow,
Yeah,
that's it.
It's
That's
really
all.
really colored by that post 9/11
Yeah.
world for sure.
Yeah.
But to jump ahead, to take my ship back.
Yarr.
Yar, yar.
Classic,
Pirates-
classic Jack Sparrow of you. We never we get the ship. Come on.
Thank you. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. This movie follows, or is really our first great introduction to one Captain Jack Sparrow, along with the rest of the lovable cast of these movies, Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, etc., as they go on a roaming adventure through the Caribbean to break a blood curse on some Mayan gold and get back the Black Pearl, basically. There's some spooky skelly pirates this time around. Yeah, so essentially, as far as why I picked this movie, I think it is such a great pirate film. It sets up the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise so well, and I think that was one of the coolest things in going back and rewatching this after just watching the second one for the show, was getting to look at all the threads that they set up.
Yeah.
And then additionally, the fact that this was like a Disney ride that they turned into this universe and story, which is very cool. It's just, I think, such a fun movie to watch. And outside of some of the goofy CGI skeletons, visually holds up pretty well as well.
Which is even like more credit to like the second one, to how they stepped up their game, because like even watching
because
this one,
the Davy Jones crew looks incredible. So like comparing it is wild.
Very cool. Alex, what'd you think about this one?
I really enjoy this movie. It's really interesting going back and watching it after just watching the second one, because I feel like I never watched it in that order.
Yeah.
But like because the second movie does such a good job of making Jack Sparrow look like such an asshole, it justifies the crew like marooning him and like mutinying against him in like such an interesting context. Yeah, it like definitely made me think about different things watching the movie this time. And it like also, I always forget how much this first one is like this epic love story. You know, like obviously that is the big conceit of the movie, but the thing I think that often overrides it is like, hey, pirates, you know?
Skeleton pirates.
Skeleton pirates, because Barbossa like draws so much, and he's such a wonderful villain.
Barbossa and Jack are such crowd stealers that you forget that Will and Elizabeth are the crux of, you know, what's moving the story.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It still does a lot of the like political and individual like maneuvering that the characters do so well, I think, in the second one. It's interesting like looking for that specifically in this as I'm watching it. Jake, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I love this movie. I think I just, every time I think of this movie, one, I appreciate that it goes a more spooky route. Like I love like the supernatural take of it that doesn't just feel like, oh, it's supernatural for the sake of being like, you know, pirate lore or whatever. Like it feels spooky, and like the scenes are like, you know, spooky, and they lean into that. Almost like they're trying to give you that same exhilaration as if you're like riding a ride where like you kind of get scared a little bit, but you're like, oh, like it's still a fun time. It's mainly the gall of this movie. Like it's literally the gall of this movie that attracts me to it so much. Like just the fact that it's based on a ride, the fact that everyone goes so hard, the fact that they put so much effort into it. And like, while I think the second movie, even though we aren't talking about it, like adds so much and like actually solidifies it. And I think with the context of the second and the third, like it brings this one even more into light for me. But just as a movie, I just think the gall of it is just like phenomenal. I just watched Jungle Cruise. We talked about it a little bit.
I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, where like you could tell like you can't really repeat this formula. Like I guess maybe in a couple of years you might be able to or some shit, but like I just feel like Jungle Cruise tried what this film did and failed spectacularly. So I don't know what was in the sauce. Well, it's probably Gore Verbinski, like, if we're being honest.
Something about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies feels so authentic. Like, it doesn't feel like a cheesy Disney movie. It feels like its own thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it definitely stands out in Disney's, like, retinue of films, you know?
They're also, like, this movie's, like, willing to, like, for Disney, willing to be violent, willing to, you know, have...
adult themes, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think is part of why it feels so different. And I think that's why the Jungle Cruise comparison is so interesting, is because Jungle Cruise is, like, a super modern Disney movie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It does not take risks in the same way. It is not willing to go that extra mile. I guess that these movies, like, there was clear vision put into them.
Mm-hmm.
Or as we may have said with Jungle Cruise, it was maybe too much vision and they didn't, there weren't enough no's.
They just threw shit at a wall and didn't make it cohesive at all.
So I mentioned this last week. This is my favorite Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I'm a sucker for the love story. I feel like they do a good job with Will's character feeling very like Princess Bride, as you wish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, Matt, why you chose this one over the third one? Because I know that you were kind of going back and forth between which one you were going to pick.
Yeah, for sure. So I know that, I can't remember if it made it into the cut for the podcast or not, but I know you had said you don't love World's End. It's your least favorite of the three. Whereas I think for me, what I really like about World's End is it has like just one, the legacy of being at the time the most expensive movie ever made.
Yeah.
Has these like truly incredible set pieces that are pulled off and look
They
so
built
great.
so many ships. Like that's
It's so much fun to watch, I think. And that was actually one of the things I wanted to talk about with Dead Man's Chest is so many of the set pieces that I associate with that storyline, because the arc continues into that movie, are from World's End. I'm like, oh, so many of the fun things I love are from that one rather than this one. However, I feel Curse of the Black Pearl as a film and as a constructed narrative is probably the strongest of the three of them. And I think that that's kind of what got me, because I think this mostly happens into like the fourth and the fifth movies. I think there's quite a bit of Flanderization of some of the characters, specifically Jack Sparrow, through the rest of these films.
Yeah.
I think Will and Jack get the worst of it. Elizabeth, I think, becomes probably more interesting as time goes on.
Yeah.
Not to say that the others don't get like interesting layers to them, but I feel like this as a self-contained narrative works really nicely. And
I agree.
Despite my love for the fun set pieces, that's what won me over.
No, for sure. They do a lot of kind of hand waving and fuckery with people's characters in the third one, and I think it's
beyond.
Because they, yeah. Well, yeah. Just
but
thinking
regardless
of those, this first one, I think, puts the characters at such a great place for storytelling. Like, no matter what, start to finish, the conclusion of their characters, and obviously it's not a conclusion, it's just so well crafted. And so, like, these are characters that I want to remember and I want to know more going forward.
We get, like, a complete arc, and then it, sets up so much for the sequels to take on, etc., without it feeling like there are... I obviously talk about Will's dad quite a bit.
Yeah.
But there's no direct implication that he is still alive.
I know, the Davy Jones locker. Stuff, yeah.
So that doesn't... It is like a nice plot hook, but it doesn't feel like something major unresolved.
It feels like this movie, if it had gone poorly, would have stood alone as a single movie and been fine. Like it didn't feel like it needed a trilogy.
But it sets up a trilogy nicely.
Yeah, at a certain point, I mean, like, you had to have known this was gonna fucking succeed, right? Like, at a certain point in the production process,
on there,
like,
and
come
just
on,
like...
you get Mouse Hunt the Ring director on there,
So let's talk action sequences, because I think we talked Dead Man's Chest last week, how those action sequences are so good. I think you get some really good ones in this movie, like Will and Jack fighting in the forge room.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, is a really good fight. I don't know if I felt it as much in some of the other action sequences. They felt, I don't know, a little generic to me. But then I compare that to the like cutting edge 3D animation in Treasure Planet. Like, I used to think those scenes of him like flying around on the like space surfboard were so cool. The space
surfboard is very cool. That's a very like cool invention.
You said you used to think.
No, I still do. I don't think it is as visually stunning as I always thought it was. But like, it's still, I mean, I think it holds up a fair amount. It's
agree.
Fairly pretty.
Yeah, no. I think in Treasure Planet, the action sequences, the big two that I think are super well done or draw the most attention, there is I don't know what the proper word, but like the meteor situation / formation of the black hole that they run into, and the death of one Admiral Arrow.
Mhm.
which just there's so much cool world building going on, like everyone tying themselves down so they literally don't get pulled away by the like competing gravitational force is such a fucking awesome
cool.
plot detail.
So cool.
And then finally the climactic sequence inside the treasure planet, as it turns out Captain Flint sent his whole planet to self-destruct. And you've just got droves and droves of gold getting sucked into the
Flint
molten
and his
core.
crew.
So
As Jim sails his way on his little rocket surfboard to change the portal so they can all escape, is just like, you know, they're different flavors of action sequence between these two movies, but I think they hit their flavors of action really nicely.
Yeah.
I do think one of the things that holds back Pirates of the Caribbean is a lot of the action when they're like fighting the skeletons, I think looks a little bit janky just because the CG on the skeletons is a little bit janky.
Right.
But I do think like when, you know, like the final battle where they're all in the cave.
I think I was going to note
I
the
think
final battle. It's
that's generally
it's
pretty
creative
good.
enough, and the stakes are high enough story wise. Where like I'm invested, and I think that's a good fight. But I will also say with Pirates, it's interesting because I think the series, and it's like, you know, the first one like is so successful because like, yes, the action sequences are one thing. Like you want the adventures, and I think overall action sequences are better in other movies. But part of what makes it good is also Captain Jack's like wittiness, creativeness to like get out of things, like the whole like escaping and cutting ropes to propel himself this way. Do it. That's also technically like an action sequence. Like there's a lot of choreographed stuff there, and that's really impressive to me. Like it felt like they got really creative with how to craft an action sequence where like Jack's not fighting anybody, he's fucking running away. And like I think that's really, really smart and clever and like shows the resourcefulness of pirates in a really, really interesting way.
And I think we get to see his resourcefulness in a way. This goes to like the Flanderization in the sequels, where like it's like very believable levels of resourcefulness. Like you watch him sleight of hand the coin in the end sequence. You like they set up these things really nicely, so you can put them to get like you could feasibly come up with these plans yourself, which I think is always like a badge of success in forming these types of sequences. Something that I wanted to bring up earlier about these two movies, because Jake was talking I know I touched on it a little bit for Treasure Planet, but Jake was talking the world building in Pirates of the Caribbean, and they basically took this Disney ride and blew it outward and created this whole universe. I just again want to double down and applaud Treasure Planet for its world building. Like
super creative idea.
They followed this idea where they wanted, like, I think it was like the 70-30 split of like Victorian era aesthetics mixed with like futurist technology, which brings together this like super beautiful collision of like history and futurism that they pull off so well in a world that I think like it feels real enough to be like actually lived in. Like that these, you know, feasibly that these are like real lives for these characters that exist.
What I like so much about it is there's like the genre steampunk, right? But this, I don't know if it fully fits into that, because I feel like it goes like you get more of the future tech in this than you do like cool gears and things. You do get some of that. But like, I don't know, it feels really unique to me because I feel like you get steampunk in a lot of things, but you don't get this. And I really like it. Jake, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, well, like that whole, I really love it when like futurism one is embedded in classic stories. Like I think that's so fun and so, I forgot the word for it, but like just so fun, so inventive. And I love having a future that seems like not like totally like I love sci-fi in general, and when it seems like super advanced, that's cool too. But having those obtainable futures, just where it's like on the cusp of like, oh yeah, flying ships. Theoretically, that should be like fucking bullshit, but something about it feels so real and grounded, where it feels like a next step of like, yes, it's like it's technically forward, but it's also back in a way. Like, you know, they're not having flying spaceships. They have to have ships and like, you know, like shit like that. Like it's something about that's like so tantalizing to me.
Because it's also well thought through. You know, they created this whole alternative universe setting where, you know, instead of going and braving space, they're braving the Ethereum, which is like space, but it has like gale force space winds and has breathable air, but is still like horrifically dangerous and has black holes and meteor swarms and like doesn't have gravity. It's just such a cool universe. and I hate that Disney tried to kill this movie because they had a planned sequel that just would have been so.
I mean, it's always
cool.
noted as like Disney's failure, and these are so interesting to be pinned together because like Pirates of the Caribbean was voted as it's one of its biggest successes. Like this was making more than like Fast and Furious at one point, and that's one of like the biggest like franchises in the world. And like that's just so cool that these two can be put together. And honestly, like they deserve the same credit for like their world building and the risks they took. It's so crazy that it takes timing to because imagine if Pirates of the Caribbean would have been animated, it probably wouldn't have gotten the same love, honestly.
Probably not. I don't think so. Can you imagine a universe, though, where Pirates of the Caribbean becomes a one-off and Treasure Planet becomes the series that, like, takes off and then they, like, do too many of them? What a wild world that would be.
Wild.
I do not know.
I would be, like, clamoring for a pirate. And I think that's where my vote kind of lies here. We're like, if that was the case, I think I would be more gung-ho about like, oh fuck, Pirates really deserves more like attention whenever. Whereas Treasure Planet, I'm fine with it being a one-off, but I like it. I like Treasure Planet enough, and like, yeah,
I don't know that I agree with that.
Yeah,
I would love if it had gotten the more that it wanted. I feel like we talked a lot about how great the characters are set up in Curse of the Black Pearl, but I want to put credit with Treasure Planet. I feel like the way they spin the narrative of the Treasure Island story is so effective in their character work.
Yeah.
It is.
I think that Jim and Silver's relationship in this one, like they have extra time, like the extra time to bond so well into what is literally a very true like father-son sort of relationship. And it is so much more believable for me here and why Jim would let Silver go at the end, given how he saved his life and the actions that Silver has taken. It just falls together so well because I think their relationship is done just like chef's kiss. Is so nice to see on screen. I think there's so much more they could have done with this universe because it's so cool.
Oh, for sure.
And somewhat there, I think there would be more for these characters to do as well. Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. I just realized I had a thought earlier that I was going to make a joke about like, well, of course, Pirates of the Caribbean's so good. It had so much source material. And then I remembered that Treasure Planet is based off of Treasure Island, one of the most like
Treasure Planet had more source material. They pulled a bunch of shit out of their fucking whatever for the ride. Yeah.
It's so interesting because of like, I feel like Treasure Planet feels so unique despite being, a remake of one of the most retold stories ever. It's so interesting.
Just anytime you want to do a remake, put them in space, man. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You just do Treasure Planet in space, and suddenly all the kids are going crazy talking about it 20 years later.
It's either that or, put some Muppets in, and you're good.
Yeah, make it out of
puppets. We'll get to that one. Don't you worry, Dave.
Do we have any final thoughts before we vote? I mean, I feel like I could talk about these movies for hours.
No, they're so fucking
I feel like
good.
there's like
great.
I have like a laundry list of topics. I feel like you could talk comedy and levity in both of these movies. We talked action scenes. We could continue to dive into the characters. We could talk adaptation. Obviously, there's a bit more there in terms of
right.
Actually, I think there's the really interesting point with Pirates of the Caribbean where the nature of adaptation meant they looped back to the ride and added Jack Sparrow at like they colored created one of the pirates to be his visage when it was just like a random pirate before.
A random pirate.
Which is like so fun and so cool. Yeah, I literally have so much I could talk about with these two movies. I think that I don't know, man. It's so tough.
I can probably start us off.
Go for it. I'll go second while Matthew has an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Watching Curse the Black Pearl, it kind of, in a weird way, made me realize that the reasons I love it, I think, are from what is established later. Like, I see the way that it's sowing seeds in a really good way. But I think if I'm trying to look at it objectively standalone, I think I like Treasure Planet more as a pirate movie. So I am voting for Treasure Planet.
Good. That's good reason. I think that's very, very completely fair. It's very hard for me to take apart what I think is a really fucking solid trilogy. and some of my favorite pirate content out there. But I will say, like, you know,
shiver my timbers.
This man's got
shiver
some
my soul.
favorite pirate media.
Don't make me start singing. I'll do it. I'll do the whole track. But for me, I still think I lean Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's very close. Like I will give Treasure Planet its due, but I think not having at least one vote on Curse of the Black Pearl. I don't know how Matthew's going to vote, but like I think it's a shame in not giving it credit for like expanding as much as it did.
Definitely.
So this is a very tough vote for me. However, I'll give a little bit of reasoning, and then I think I know what I'm going to vote for. So I think, similar to Alex, unlike your perspective, like, there is lots to love from the future pirate movies. I think Curse of the Black Pearl, as like a single packaged narrative, is probably like a better story. I'd love to keep it in the bracket. However, part of me feels like gotta put some respect on pirates that aren't around water, dude. You know, we got so many pirates in the water. Only space pirate we got going on here, and I feel like I want to keep that representation around. And also, we can talk like the Pirates of the Caribbean lore, characters, etc., championed on the back of Dead Man's Chest, but we can't keep talking Treasure Planet without Treasure Planet.
We could.
Well, they're we'll get there.
We could keep talking Treasure Island.
We can keep talking the original novel.
If we voted Dodgeball in, we could have kept talking about Treasure Island.
So with that, I think I am going to vote for Treasure Planet.
Oof. That's a good vote.
Yeah, I like the representation. I like space pirates.
I think it's a really tough matchup because I think any movie going up a Pirates of the Caribbean movie in this bracket is going to have a really hard time because I think at this point,
they're like a blueprint at this point. They're just,
literally.
When you think of pirate movie, I feel like you think of Pirates of the Caribbean. So it is really hard to get past that.
One, props to us. I think we picked great movies basically throughout this bracket, which makes picking so hard. Two, I think in the future we should do like a mini Pirates of the Caribbean bracket.
Oh yeah, we have so much to talk about. Yeah,
I feel like we've realized that there's just too much here, and it's got to be let out the cage sometime.
Right.
Especially whatever deep-seated things we feel about the fourth and fifth movies.
Yeah, and hey, they're making another one with Margot Robbie instead of Johnny Depp.
What?
They announced that. Yep.
Interesting. Cool. I mean, I'll watch it.
I'll watch it.
No Jack Sparrow.
What if they got Gore Verbinski to come back?
If they got Gore Verbinski to come back.
If they got Gore Verbinski to come back, I would nut my pants right now.
Right.
And I want it to be connected in like some very tangible way. Like I want Margot Robbie to play.
Like Nathan Lane shows up and he wants to get
with that, Treasure Planet advances. Alex, do you want to go ahead and introduce Hook?
I sure can.
We'll leave best for last.
Peter Banyan, played by Robin Williams. Oh, I guess I should say the movie. This is Hook, released in 1991, directed by Steven Spielberg. Peter Banyan, played by Robin Williams. So did I when I was watching it, actually. Robin Williams plays adult Peter Pan. He's a big business boy, an attorney, doing work and doing things. And he is all grown up, but in a bad way. And he's not there for his family. And when his kids are kidnapped, he has to go back to Neverland, become the Peter Pan he used to be, and defeat Captain Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman. So fun. Yeah. I was trying to think of a third pirate movie, and I thought of this movie, and I hadn't seen it in years and years and years. And I remember really liking it as a kid. And I thought, this is a good opportunity to watch a movie that Robin Williams was in. Because I am just a sucker for so much of his work. So that's why I pitched Hook. Jake, what do you think of this one?
Yeah. I remember Hook was always on. I remember like consistently either my brother or sister, like mom or dad, like they would Hook. Like I know I've seen Hook a lot of times when I was a kid. And I think Robin Williams is like fucking one of the most charming people on the planet. Like very, very good. Like it no matter what, like even if I feel like he gives in a bad performance, I feel like he's just so fucking endearing. That's the power of Robin Williams that you get. I felt that there are fun parts of this, but I don't know if it's they're fun because they're good or is they're fun just because they're fun. Does that make sense? That's just how I feel about this movie. And it's not that it's inherently bad. Like, I still had a fun time, but I just feel like, this is fun. I don't necessarily know.
Some of it is really cheesy.
It's like to the point where like I don't think it's something I want to talk about when we verse, but like we'll get into it. Like the cheese versus the purposeful like camp satire of it all. But whatever. We'll get into that. Matthew, what do you think of it?
I took an obscene number of notes about this movie. My brain is so filled with thoughts. I have probably seen this before.
Wow.
If I haven't, it was like 20 years ago that I saw it. I was watching this with someone, and as we're approaching the end of it, they're like, "Doesn't Rufio die?" And I'm like, and then like literally the next scene Rufio dies. I'm like, are you fucking joking? Like my grasp was just so tenuous on this plot. Like the large elements like Peter Pan, a big goes back like that. I'm like, yeah, I know this movie. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had fun with it though. But I think I am super in the same boat as Jake of like, was this fun because it was good?
Oh yeah, no, definitely in the same boat as you guys. Like I remember enjoying this movie a lot. I had a time watching it this time.
I have so many thoughts. But we'll get into it. Jake, do you want to introduce your movie?
Yeah, I'm so ready. Movie. Listen, my little nasties. I love y'all. As you probably know, I know a lot of movies. There's a really fun story, about movies and why I love whatever. We'll get into it after I introduce this, but I'm pitching one that I hold most dear. It's Muppet Treasure Island, 1996, by Brian Henson of the Henson family. Yes, I can acknowledge, unfortunately, he also did Happy Time Murders. So I'm going to get that out of the way. All right. So Matthew doesn't bring it up and break my heart. Because he was planning on his little demon eyes. Look, this is a rework of like the same Robert Louis Stevenson's classic tale, Treasure Island. But instead it's the Muppets take to the high seas in a swashbuckling adventure in search of buried treasure. And who are they with? Who is Long John Silver? Tim fucking Curry. This movie, I had it on VCR, and it was a double VCR. It had Muppet Treasure Island and Feifel Goes West on the other side. I know. I don't know why they had the sequel to American Tail on it, but they did. And I love this movie. It makes me cry every time. At the end, there's something about it like immediately pulls me back to childhood. Even watching it, whenever I rewatch it, I just always find new like things that I think are so funny. I love Muppet humor. I think like they're so clever. I think the songs are genuinely very like good, very like like well written. They even do a cover of a famous ballad, with Miss Piggy and Kermit like above like a cliff, they almost like dropping to their deaths. It's like I remember being I literally there's a story where like I was watching it for the first time and I'd already loved the Muppets before, and where they were showing the pirate captain for the first time, and the old man comes out and they were building it up, so I thought it was Kermit, and apparently I was like, no, the old man. Like I was booming the TV. And then all of a sudden Kermit came out and I like was like seriously, yeah, Kermit is the captain. And then when Sam the Eagle dust off the ship, he's like, he's furious. So like you have to walk the plank. Look, I could go on and on about this movie. It's very near and dear to my heart. Like I get so emotional talking about it. And honestly, I'm just really happy that I finally got to share this with the two people that I love sharing things with, movies and stuff. So I'm excited to hear what they say, even if they hate it. Alex, you can go first. how do you
Sure.
like the magnum opus that is Muppet Treasure Island?
So I had never seen Muppet Treasure Island before. I actually have not seen a lot of the Muppet movies, but oh man, they're so charming. I love how in the beginning when they do the credits, they say like Kermit as Captain Smollett and like Sam the Eagle as Mr. Arrow. Like that's so charming. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I had a really good time. The like opening song for this movie is so good.
Shiver my soul. Dude, and the ending where he shoots. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
in
good.
it.
It's really fun. I had a good time. There are things that I was disappointed by,
Right.
but for the most part, I can overlook them.
Because the
But-
charm of the Muppets.
But I did have a really good time. I'll just throw it out there now. The one thing that I was kind of disappointed by was, Jake, you're going to be so sad when I say this.
I'm gonna be so sad.
Tim Curry in the action sequences, because they're like so
The leg,
steadfast
yeah.
on the leg, he like really doesn't move around much. And I
Right.
would have just loved to see him like doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like fighting
For
pirates
me,
more.
I could totally agree. So I'm gonna be on defense mode for all of it. You're gonna have to excuse it. I'm so sorry. I do agree, but I think what makes it so good for me and why is it one of my favorites is because Tim Curry, he's had like interviews ad nauseum about this. He genuinely believes the Muppets are real, and he's acting with real like figures and real people, and like you could just tell.
Oh yeah.
You could tell, like he genuinely, like when he kisses Miss Piggy in that scene, that was improv. He just was like, I have to kiss her. Like he just kissed Miss Piggy, and like that's just like his charm enough to interact with him. I felt like it like overlapped his like he couldn't move, and like that's
Mhm.
realistic. Also, he just couldn't fucking move. He had a peg leg.
Well, and like he's so fun to watch. He's such a great performer. Like I love the way he speaks. Every line that comes out of his mouth is like butter.
Look what a cannonball took off me. I love it.
Matt, how about you? What'd you think?
Yeah, so I think this might be the first Muppet movie I've seen. Obviously, I've got quite a bit of familiarity with
Wow.
the Muppets.
Yeah.
I don't know how I've dodged every Muppet movie. Oh, wait. No, I've seen Happy Time Murders.
No, yeah, you have. You bastard. Well, you can for sure say that this movie is better than Happy Time
Oh, God,
Murders.
yeah, no, much better. This movie, for like the first 2/3, is like good, probably even above average. And then you get to the final third from like Professional Pirate onward. Like everything
man.
before, I'm like a little mid on, like it's like good. I'm like having a good time. I'm cruising. That final third, dude, goes so hard.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's just so much. Literally, like from that song, literally from the start of Professional Pirate onward, I'm like,
Once they get
cruising,
to the island,
having a
once they
good
get to
time.
the island, it's
Yeah.
fucking like
a
it
hundred,
explodes. It's so good.
100%. You get Miss Piggy's big introduction. You get the
Mhm.
fight scene. You get them reclaiming the boat.
Yeah.
Like you get the dangling
the
over the
ghosts.
cliff's edge. It's
Yeah.
just so many good things, so many things to love. Yeah, I don't want to say a movie carried by its final act, but it's elevated by its final act.
Well,
for sure.
it's wild because usually it's the other way around. Like usually the final act is what disappoints
They
people.
trip in the end
Yeah.
zone, so to speak, or some.
No, I think they
sport
sprint
metaphor.
towards such a good thing. I mean, I just think the bits are so strong. Like you have like Rizzo the Rat, how they made it him be in this movie was to have a tourist attraction in every like little part. There'd be like skiing in the background,
It's
or
like
be
so
like,
much
"Oh,
meta
this
humor."
is the set of
Yeah.
Muppet Treasure Island."
Which
Like, yeah.
most of the best of the meta jokes come in that final third.
yeah,
You've got them like the dinner and a meal. Like they're like, oh,
Yeah.
this dinner time show. You've got the joke about this is the set of Muppet Treasure Island. Like even the meta jokes from the rat tourists are the best in the final third.
Yeah.
yeah.
With that said, it's going up against Hook, a movie I've got so many thoughts about.
So sling some at us, Matt.
Yes.
I'm gonna come out the top with a big one. Why Hook? Why the movie kind of a little bit horny? One of the first things Peter says when he sees tiny Tinkerbell's like, you got nice legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why
Yeah.
that? I mean, smooches several mermaids. He nearly makes out with Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Like, what's going
to be fair,
on,
Muppet
dude?
Treasure Island is also fairly horny.
Oh, he porks that pig, dude. Like
they always talked about like, oh, like I used to be with her. This piggy's like, oh, Long John. Like, whoa.
It's just Hook is not the movie I would have thought.
Yeah,
which is
Muppet
neither,
Treasure
like,
Island is they're gonna be horny.
You see Miss Piggy and it just does things to us. And that's not like a condemnation of Hook. It's just a genuine question. And I want to parlay this, like set up premise, movie horny. To the reason that he leaves Neverland for the first time. He's living forever, king of the Lost Boys, an army of child soldiers, which we'll talk about. I've got a lot of thoughts about that too. King of the Lost Boys. And he keeps coming. He's like, yo, Wendy, how you been? Where you at, girl? How things going? And Peter Pan, who's been, 13 since the 1800s or whatever, when Tinkerbell kidnapped him, another thing I've got thoughts about. He did not get lost. He was a baby.
Yeah, wait, I love the story. I love when he's telling the story and he's like, and then I ran away. And it's just like a baby in a stroller wheeling away.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, anyway, circling back. King of the Lost Boys, he comes back, he's like, hey, Wendy, you good? You up? And Wendy's like, I have a family now, as they pan to her sleeping daughter who's in the same room where they're having like a full volume conversation, who's 13. And it's like Peter's literal sexual awakening that causes him to stay. He's like, I'm going to marry your 13-year-old daughter, Wendy, when I grow up too.
Yeah, it's like he got to Neverland right before puberty hit. And then so every time he left Neverland, he got a little bit older. And eventually
it's just more horny every
little
time.
bit by little bit, he got to the point where it was like, a boner?
Yeah, like and they and it's like something they want to emphasize of like,
no,
a kiss,
yeah, that's
and it
the
gives
thing.
them,
They
gives them the
emphasize
thimble.
on it.
Like, it's like the starting sequence of the movie. It's like, the scene with the kiss and the thimble. And it's like, I think meant to be a cute moment. Like, I know I want to marry this woman, even though we're both 13.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is to be like, even though Peter was a lost boy and had the thing of like, I won't grow up, like
he's
seeing Wendy grow up made him realize, oh, I want to grow up. And like, this is the person I want to grow up with.
He just saw titties for the first time and was like, went wild. We could say that. Like, it's true. Like,
can we talk about...
he also, last thing, kisses the sleeping 13-year-old. Like, I get you're also 13 because time's, frozen or something. But, like, you've been alive for, like, 200 years, dude.
Still
like,
weird,
what are you
dude.
doing?
Still weird.
If
Still
I
weird.
am Grandma Wendy, I'm
weird.
batting that motherfucker away. Especially a tiny caveat. I know you want to say something else, Alex, but a tiny caveat. The novel of which the movies are all based on, not this one, but the original Peter Pan story. Peter treats Wendy like his mommy wife. He wants her to be mother to all the Lost Boys.
It's a waifu
but
thing,
also like we do pretend parents for all the Lost Boys too. So like mommy wife. So it's like such a weird dynamic that he's like, mommy wife. Now that mommy wife has baby, I want to marry baby. Like, what is going on here?
Dude, the whole story of Peter Pan is just like a whole
it's pretty
Oedipus
weird.
nightmare.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty terrible, actually.
It's so crazy. Sorry, go back to your thought.
So it was weird watching this movie. When I was rewatching it, I forgot that it came out in 91. Like, I was thinking that it came out at the end of the 90s.
Pre 9/11.
Yeah, and you can
really
feel
colored it.
But they gave Maggie Smith makeup and stuff to make her look older, right? I assume they did. But
yeah, probably.
Probably.
I watched Downton Abbey, so I've seen her a lot as a real old woman. And so it was really off-putting to me to
have her be an old,
to have her be an old woman, but not the right old woman.
That's so interesting. I never really thought of that. Like looking back at actors who played older people and got aged makeup, and then watching them be old acting. That's that's weird. That's crazy.
It was really weird. Also, this is Gwyneth Paltrow played young Wendy, and this was her second appearance in film ever, which is absolutely wild that it was this movie.
A condemnable offense.
This is how she got the idea for the candle, unfortunately.
This is all where Goop started.
This is all where Goop started.
I want to talk pirates, obviously. We've talked a little bit about Tim Curry as lead pirate. So good.
God.
So great. So charismatic.
Dude.
However, Hook. the
titular character.
Yes, Dustin Hoffman's Hook is also fascinating to me.
I love the way that you said that.
Right.
Like, I think generally it's like a fun acted role. There's a lot of like very funny moments. Especially his interactions with his first mate, Smee, are like generally pretty funny. But like, I guess like broader implication questions. I know you're fighting with the Lost Boys, my guy, but you're like killing literal children on the regular.
The kids talk about killing the pirates, though, so it's like back and forth.
Yeah, we'll talk the child soldiers in a second.
Sure.
But but like, I don't know, dude. There's this weird... Okay, there's the climax. They're battling. It's like the final showdown between Peter Pan and Captain Hook. And Peter's kids are like, we want to go home. And he's like, you know what? I will leave this man who just killed a child 6 minutes ago. I will leave him alive, if not for a terrible stroke of fate. What's up with that?
Well, this movie does a lot of
hand wave child killing.
It does some very interesting and questionable things. So, one, don't fully know why it's called Hook. Obviously Captain Hook is the villain.
Look, I get it, but like, you didn't do anything interesting with Hook.
Right. I mean, I guess you get more of Captain Hook in this than you do in like the Disney Peter Pan cartoon, whatever.
Sure.
But I think it also then raises a question at the end where he wakes up on the street and Smee is there, but he's just a British person. So it like kind of questions what's real. Yeah. Like, did this guy just like totally like
night out?
Yeah, drunken night out, goes and steals some marbles and then comes back home.
But like, here's the thing: if he did, he fantasized about killing children. Like,
no, he fantasized about children being killed around him and him not caring.
He fantasized about having an army of child soldiers.
Yes.
So there's the moment where they've got the suiting up for action scene where all the Lost Boys are putting on their like bamboo armor. And I'm like, these are children going to fight men who have literally been joking all movie about how much they enjoy killing kids.
Well, so
it's killed kids.
So that's where I think you really see the pre 9/11 influence, because it's still got World War II in the brain, you know?
Yeah.
And sending them out. And the fact that Peter, you know, lived a regular life, raised children, has kids the same age as the Lost Boys, and he's like, I want you guys to fight and die for me. You know? Like, that's such a wild concept that, like, this movie espouses and is, like, fully okay with him going back to his life, knowing that he got Rufio killed. And I don't think he gives a second thought to it. I don't think he loses sleep.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the only one who died in Muppet Treasure Island was Dead Tom. You know?
And he was Dead Tom.
You shot Dead Tom!
Like, it's just, I don't know. There's just like, I know I feel like I just have so much to talk about with Hook, and I know we barely talked about Muppet Treasure Island. I know that 70% of this has just been me talking.
No, it's feeling good for me, honestly.
another big one.
The less we talk about Muppet Treasure Island right now, the better.
Another big one I want to talk about. There'll be two things. One's going to be another funny one, and then the next one's going to be like a character questioning one.
Yes.
The pirate baseball dude.
Hell yeah.
Two things on that. So we had two things, sub nested. One, they seem to have a concept of what the rules of baseball are for pirate baseball, where you're allowed to shoot people.
Yeah.
Crazy. Kind of fun. And two, fictional baseball settings. Twilight Vampire Baseball versus Hook Pirate Baseball.
I mean, you don't have the best song to go with Twilight. The Twilight Baseball had, like, come on.
What if we put
Twilight
that song
Baseball
here? You know, would it change the emotions?
If you put the song,
yeah. What if we just swap the audio?
Supernova, right?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
If you put that song in Hook, Hook would be now at a 12% at Rotten Tomatoes.
Wait, is it that low?
I actually have no idea. I think Hook is like at a 20%.
That's so good.
The steal his children plotline and make them love you is a very interesting idea. To which Hook seems to actually begin to feel some parental feelings towards Peter's son. Maybe? It's somewhat unclear.
I just think they all need to go to therapy. Like, I genuinely think they all need, like, a heavy dose of therapy.
I think Peter definitely needs to go to therapy because this is all in his
But
head.
his children are recounting the same story, you know? And
That's
okay,
true.
wait,
Right.
circling back. I know I said only two things, but I had an additional one. The kids show back up. They fly in through the window. The mother's been sleeping there waiting. Like, the police had been called. It's been like 5 days, implied.
Yeah.
Why does she, one, like, not question how her kids got there? Like, I get you're happy to see them.
She
But,
doesn't
like,
give a
throw,
shit
like,
about
one
her
or
kids.
two questions in there. Two,
Neverland magic.
Peter also goes missing. And she's just, like, sleeping in the guest bedroom, hoping the kids show back up.
Okay, this is why I don't think that the stuff on Neverland
But
actually
they call the
happened,
police.
because
Where were the kids?
Right, exactly. No. So I think Peter got really drunk, found the kid somehow, and was like, this is what happened. And then passed out outside. And it actually wasn't 3 days. It was like 24 hours.
I was going to say, I don't think it actually was 5 days. I think he just got fucked up and said a story drunk. And then here
Peter
we
watched a man kill a child and just was like, hey, I'm
maybe that's what it is. Maybe
leave you to get killed by animals. And
as long as he has his mommy wife, then, you know, he doesn't really care. At that point.
It's insanity. Last thing, I feel like I've unloaded. This has just been like rapid fire. Matthew's thoughts on Hook.
You literally eased all my anxiety about having Muppet Treasure Island in a bracket.
So most of those things I previously brought up, for the most part, are like pretty funny and like it's like, I don't know, like the child soldier concept's so wild that like I can't help but laugh at it. They open up very early on when he's come back to London and sees Wendy again, when he's like, Peter, you've become a pirate. And what I feel like the movie's trying to set up is the idea that like adults and pirates are one in the same concept, because like you lose, like the Lost Boys lose their childhood and become like pirates, and he's done the same arc. But like it's like they bring it up then and then they never really touch it again.
Yeah, because why would you want to, you know,
have themes?
Why would you want to double down when you could have child soldier?
You could horny. You could have Rufio getting killed and then everybody forgetting about it 6 minutes later. But that's just the reality of child soldiers. You know, they live in the face of conflict.
True. They live and they die.
Guys, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it, guys. I think this movie does Rufio dirty.
Oh, it does Rufio so dirty.
Dude is like the kickflip child soldier king. And then this grown-ass man shows back up and is like, nah, give me my sword and my title. And then Rufio's like...
And my tights.
Yeah, and his tights. And Rufio's like, I want to win back the appreciation of my fellow child soldiers by my valiant combat. And he gets stabbed by a grown man, and then everyone forgets about him.
Rufio just had, like, a worse arc. He's like a worse James Norrington in the Pirates.
Insane, dude.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
James Norrington is like the Chad Rufio.
Also, what's up
Chad
with the little
Rufio.
Mobster kid who has like a Jersey accent?
Some of the kids in this movie are not good.
I mean, hey, they had a Marlon Brando pirate in Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah, but that's like we know.
But that's like a well done
intentionally a
joke.
Yeah.
This is just bad acting.
Yeah, is
No,
it like
I
did
just wanted you
they
to say more positive.
did they? I want to find the script for Hooked. What was the kid meant to be Mobster Kid? Did
I think he
Steven
showed up on
Spielberg
set.
decide,
Yeah,
or did the
I think he
12-year-old
showed up.
go, you know what? You know what would really elevate this role, Steven? If I had a bit of an edge to me. Like,
Steven was sick that day and they had someone else.
oh, God.
Is there... I know we barely talked about Muppet Treasure Island, but
That's fine.
I kind of think it's okay in this situation.
Yeah.
Are we ready to
Look,
vote?
I will talk about Muppet Treasure Island ad nauseum when I get the chance, but I needed, you know, I understand eventing when I see one.
But my
and I
brain
know-
just needed to unload, dude. I had so many things swimming around. So I apologize formally.
Nah, dude.
I don't know
No.
what it was. I got some funny notes about Muppet Treasure Island, but we'll see if I have to save them. We're going to vote.
Yeah, who knows what will go next?
Jake, why
I'm
don't you
ready to
start us
vote.
off?
Look, if it's not very clear, Muppet Treasure Island all the way.
Jake, you won't even throw a pity vote to Hook. You know, there's
No.
confidence that it will go
Nope.
through.
Nope.
That Alex and I are already
chances.
going to vote for it.
No chances because you're a little feral about Hook, so I don't know if like I don't know if you're gonna be thinking of Tinkerbell's sexy legs and then all of a sudden be like, no, Hook, I have to talk more.
I've got more things. I've got another page and a half of notes.
So many more good notes.
How do the adults get to Neverland? How do the pirates get there? You know, why is every adult on Neverland a pirate? Anyway, Alex, you want to vote?
Sure. It was fun to watch Hook again, but I have to vote for Muppet Treasure Island. You know, I wish Hook was a better movie. I'll say that.
Hook was it was fun. It was fun.
I think it's got so much potential, like, to be a good movie. Like, the Peter Pan story is pretty bad, but like adult Peter Pan returning to Neverland has so much potential to like fix the issues of Peter Pan, and this movie just like doesn't try to do
if
that.
If they
at
would
all.
have done it again, like if they would have done that movie, I think with a different writer, same cast. Like I genuinely feel like Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman are well casted, but I think they needed an overhaul.
There were 4 writers.
That's the issue.
If that doesn't give you some hint as to what might have been happening.
Yikes.
Yes. That leaves me. Despite all my feral thoughts, if I formed like a list of movies that were movies that saved the best for last, just like movies that fucking kill their third act, the child soldiers gearing up in Hook is so goddamn cool, dude. That's why I'm voting for Muppet Treasure Island.
Wait, guys. Okay, I did some Googling. The Jersey Lost Boy, he's played by James Matteo, who he was in a couple things.
Almost James Marsden.
The character's name is just Don't Ask.
Don't ask.
That's his Lost Boy name.
That's badass. That's badass. If I had a character named be Don't Ask, that's good. That's badass. I like that.
So that's it, though. Muppet Treasure Island is moving on.
Yeah. So coming at you next episode, we've got Pirates in an Adventure with Scientists or Pirates Band of Misfits, both the same movie, versus Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. And then in the second half of that episode, we've got Treasure Planet versus Muppet Treasure Island. Battle of the Adaptations.
Wow. That's going to be genuinely a very good fight. Looking forward to that.
Actually, all of them adapted, because I believe the characters in Band of Misfits are based on novels.
They're
the
based
same
on
name.
Really?
They're based on
Wow.
So that should be
a short story. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. So that should be super, super fun. Look forward to that. Beyond that, make sure to rate and review the show on all your favorite podcasting platforms. I've been told that they help. Follow us on social media at ToughCutPod. I'm willed to say that by an eldritch entity that controls my body when I do these outros.
Don't ask.
Don't ask. It has something to do with Good Burger, I think.
Right.
And who should they share this episode with?
Share it with a child soldier.